Welcome everyone. Today I am joined by Ryan, one of the well-being specialists that works in Zevo Health, who delivers our services to content moderation teams in Costa Rica. So today we're going to be talking about one of the core presenting issues that we see when working with moderation teams, which is burnout. So you're very welcome, Ryan.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Michelle. Glad to be here. So I'm super excited regarding talking about this topic about burnout because it's something that a lot of people sometimes are not conscious of having.
Hmm.
Sometimes people think that burnout is something unreal or it doesn't exist, and it happens quite often. And specifically, it happens a lot with content moderators because they
Yeah.
don't notice how long or exposed they have been to content or the nature of that work itself, and eventually they can get burned out,
Yeah.
where it's like super exhausting for them. Well, we got to understand what burnout is in the beginning for
Yeah,
starting, no?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think like you're absolutely spot on. We see it a lot in content moderation teams. We try and tackle it as best as we can, but there are numerous various factors that can contribute to burnout. So like you said, important for us to understand what burnout is. So could you even just give our audience a better understanding of what burnout actually is?
Yes. So for understanding what burnout is, it's like exhaustion, a level of exhaustion that it can be mental, it can be physical, it can be work-wise, where the person has come to a level where there's a total lack of interest on what they're doing.
Mm,
They have come to high levels of stress where they have been so stressed for so long time, so for a long time that they just don't care anymore. They practically burned
yeah.
all their motivation or they're willing to go to work and stuff like that. And it's like, I don't want to work anymore. And they
Mm,
just don't care. And it's not like your regular Monday, like, oh gosh, it's Monday. I don't want to go to work. No, it's like every single day. It's like, I don't care. I just don't want to go. That's like
yeah.
one of the typical behaviors we can see when people are going through burnout. It's not that they don't care. They really are exhausted. And one of the manifestation is like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And I don't care about the consequences or anything like that.
Yeah, and I think that's like maybe one of the kind of hallmark symptoms, is that sort of like real disinterest or that sort of like lack of motivation to even like do anything. And you could really care, about the work that you're doing, particularly when it comes to content moderation, but you're just at that point where you're so exhausted, whether that's mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is that you're just like, I can't do this. I have no interest in what it is that I'm doing. And so, like, is it like how does it differ maybe then to like your everyday kind of stress or like even just like you mentioned, like on a Monday, just feeling really tired?
Yeah, okay, that's a great question. So, like, one of the key differences is with stress or like with healthy stress, is like you get all excited. Well, not excited, but when you get a like important email, it's like, oh, I gotta reply this, I gotta do this
Mm,
work. Like, there's a spike in your emotionalness. Like, you go quickly, oh, I gotta do this, and I gotta do the other thing, and I gotta reply this email, and I gotta moderate all of these videos and images, and then you cool down. Like
yeah.
with a healthy stress level is that you go in an exciting level emotionally and then it goes down. But with burnout, there's a difference. You stay up here. Your levels of stress stay here, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And the
Mm,
interesting thing is like sometimes if you even on Saturday and Sunday, you start thinking about the things that you gotta do on your work week again. So your levels of stress is still up here. And this
yeah.
happens like for a period of days, weeks, even months. So imagine yourself going through these high levels of stress constantly and never going back down, never cooling down. Eventually, all of these levels of stress is what is like slowly burning you up, slowly burning
Mm,
you up, slowly burning you up. And when you see you won't come back to your natural level, no, you're gonna go even lower. And when you go
okay.
lower, it's gonna be a little bit harder just to come back to your base level of your everyday work. So that's one of the key difference between the stress and burnout is like you go way down because you burn too much. You were going through so much stress for so much long time
Yeah.
that you just don't want to keep on going.
Yeah. And I think that's like a really good kind of way to think about stress versus burnout is like stress is like there's like a lot happening all at once, and like you're able to respond to it as you need to, and then you like you said you have that kind of cool down period But then, like with burnout, it tends to be like this huge depletion of resources. Like all of a sudden, I cannot cope with anything anymore. I like don't know what I'm feeling. My thoughts are all over the place. I'm just like totally like out of sorts. It's just like that really, really kind of like low feeling of like there's nothing I can do to remedy this or to like make myself feel better or like even if I work extra hard, like it's not going to make any difference. I'm just completely like out of resources mentally, physically, like spiritually, all of it.
Yeah, totally. Because it's like you're so overwhelmed that you just won't do anything about it. It's like it's too
Yeah.
much, and you just rather sit down or just chill, and it's like I don't care. And
Yeah.
that's an interesting practice because in stress you do care for the consequences. It's like, oh, I gotta do this because I can get fired. I gotta do this because I have to pay the bills. Or
Mm,
I want to do this because I gotta spend time with my family and friends. But when you're burnt out, it's like, well, I don't care. Like
yeah.
they're so overwhelmed. It's like they have so much stuff going through their head that it's like, no, not anymore. That's it. I don't care.
Yeah, and I think
They
it's like particularly I think when we think about content moderation and like trust and safety, like it is a busy job. There's a lot of like various different hats that you have to like wear. There's a lot of like different moving parts when it comes to like what it is that you're doing to make a decision. And so like you're sort of constantly on trying to work through your tickets or through your cases. And so it's I think it's quite easy to become very overwhelmed with the amount of work that there is and the like cognitive load that it takes and the time pressures and things like that, that burnout is very possible, and that we have to be very considerate of that in ensuring that we're kind of mitigating the risk of burnout for people who are working in these really fast-paced kind of environments.
totally, totally. And the thing is, it's so normalized. People
Yeah.
normalize going through all of these high levels of stress constantly where they gotta reach out to burnout.
Yeah.
And it's like in some level frightening that we gotta do something about it,
Mm.
because people are like, oh, this is super normal. And it's like it's super normal to have high levels of stress every single day. And it's like, yeah, this is not the way we gotta do these kinds of things. This is not a healthy way to cope with all of this.
Yeah. And like, look, there is
Mm.
healthy stress, like you mentioned, right? Like, everybody's gonna go through stress at some point during their days, whether it's like one particular email or one particular interaction they have with like a customer or something like that, right? But
Hmm.
like when it's consistent and it's ongoing and there's kind of no way out of that stress, that's where it becomes really problematic. So you've worked with content moderators for a couple of years now. So based on your kind of experience, what are some of the factors that can increase the likelihood of moderators experiencing burnout?
Yes, that's a great question. So, there's like three specific elements that can contribute to moderators experiencing burnout. Number one is the monotonous work. So
Mm,
sometimes these kinds of jobs, the nature itself of content moderator, it's stressful enough, from reading harmful comments, from seeing really horrible videos, really nasty pictures and stuff like that on the internet. The nature of this job itself, it's really stressful.
mhm,
So having this being constantly every single day can experience or can add an extra layer of stress to that job itself. So being monotonous of going from Monday, let's go from Monday to Friday,
mhm.
and working, between 6 and 8 hours. You
Yeah.
gotta watch and experience it. Sometimes it's 100, sometimes 500, depends on the needs of the client itself that sometimes these content moderators have regarding the world situation. So they gotta see a lot of these videos, a lot of these pictures constantly, continuously, so many times during the day. So
Mm,
it's not really nice if you think about it, because like yeah, sometimes there's weird videos or really odd stuff that people report. It's like okay, that's not bad. But imagine yourself seeing the same thing every single day for the next couple of weeks.
mm,
That can be so stressful in itself. It's like so overwhelming. So that's one of the elements that can contribute or put a higher risk of burnout in content moderators. The second one is the lack of support. Sometimes
okay.
people don't understand how content moderators work itself, and sometimes it's just they get the let's put it in quotes here, like the call center treatment, like
Yeah.
just work, just continue, just produce. And if you think about it, they're being constantly exposed to a lot of these videos, a lot of these pictures, a lot of these comments, and well, naturally they're gonna bring all of that to themselves, to their family, to
Mm,
their friends, to their life. So they need an extra support. They need extra breaks. They need um, just a safe space so they can vent out what they see into. Sometimes they
Yeah.
lack a lot of support. They just like, oh, you're gonna work for the next 5 straight hours, and that's it.
Mm,
Instead of like having breaks here, to go check your phone, go walk outside, have a cup of coffee, you know, these kinds of stuff can really help content moderators cool down
yeah.
in those levels of stress. And another element that we're going to see a lot is job insecurity. As I was
Mm,
stating before, sometimes it's a high level of stress itself. So job insecurity in these cases is like they're not getting paid enough, or there are a lot of people resigning, so there's a lot of people coming in, or they're
mm,
firing a lot of people and a lot of people coming in. So that can put in an extra layer of stress naturally to
yeah.
content moderators. It's like, am I gonna get fired? Am I not, like, what's going on? Am I getting paid enough? This is like, and all of these kinds of thoughts appear. And it's like, okay, so they're already going through the stress of content moderators. They're already having the stress of those meetings, customers, or those emails.
Mm,
And now I'm thinking about, am I losing my job? Am I doing my job correctly? Is it what's going on? They just fire a colleague of mine. Does this mean that they're layoffs? So all of these rambling thoughts appear,
yeah.
and those rambling thoughts are gonna add a next, well, not a next, and add a new layer of stress. So
Yeah.
we're seeing like the monotonous work, the lack of support, and the job insecurity is gonna add so much new layers of stress. So if we're
Yeah.
already up here and we couldn't cool down, we're gonna leave here and go higher and higher, stay up here. This is just gonna add more burnout. Even like burnout quicker. Instead of like
Mm,
spending months, it can be weeks because it's high levels of stress and people can come to a point like, I don't care. And
yeah.
that naturally going to contribute with like the last element, job insecurity, is people like, oh, I don't care.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. I think like what's really important in what you're saying there is that it's not necessarily like one thing that is going
mhm,
to cause burnout or that's going to put someone at higher risk of developing burnout. There's various different layers to it. And so like somebody who's experiencing monotonous work because they're viewing the same thing every day and they're taking the same actions every day and it might get a little bit boring or it's just like a lot of kind of stress to deal with. And then on top of that, maybe like they've had a little bit of a conflict with like one of their colleagues or like a team leader, and or like they were told that they couldn't take their break because they've got a backlog of content
mhm,
that they've got to get through. And then layer that on top of like the industry as a whole experiencing like layoffs. And is our company going to be next? Like, is it going to be me? And then I don't care about my job anymore. So am I going to perform as well? And then is that going to impact my job? Like it's all just sits one on top of another. And it's just
yeah,
layers and layers and layers of stress, one on top of the other, which eventually leads to burnout.
that's the whole idea. And it's like, we got to be so conscious about this because we normalize. The thing
Yeah.
is, we normalize this. It's like, oh, this is the job, this is what it is. And the thing is, it's not. It shouldn't be this way. We can take some action. And if we add some good coping skills to all of this,
Mm,
can help a lot of content moderators to moderate even better and to produce a little bit more comfortably.
yeah.
And we can have a better flow of work instead of like adding all of these layers of stress on people.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were, say, like a team lead or a
Mm,
supervisor to content moderators, are there things that you might kind of notice in your team that would indicate they're experiencing burnout?
yes. So one of the key indicators, it would be like checking for their emotional state. Like sometimes when when you go to the floor and stuff like that, you can see like if they're going through or they're going through an overwhelming state.
Mm,
And you can see this constantly. It's like, this is odd. This person like has cried maybe 3 times this week at the job, and it's like, hey, are you doing okay? Do you need extra breaks? Do you
yeah.
need something about it? Or you start seeing a level of lack of interest. You see people
Mm,
like just coming in late, not doing their not not tagging or not marking on time, stuff like that. Is like everything okay? Do you need extra support? Stuff like that. You start seeing like these small details, or you see them really stressed out, like sometimes you see them having extra anxiety or panic attacks.
mm,
And it's like, this is something interesting. There's this something happening here with the job, or is everything going okay with the job and stuff like that. So
yeah.
if you're a team lead, right, practically my recommendation would be check for your agents or your work colleagues' emotional state is, hey, how you doing? These constantly checkups is how you doing, how you
Mm,
feeling, is the work doing okay? Because if you see people like, you know, moving a lot in their chairs and it's like feeling a little bit anxious, and you can notice these things. It's like, oh, is everything okay? Do you need extra support?
Yeah.
So, or they can start saying phrases or words like, well, I don't care. This is just an extra job. I don't mind. And you start
Mm,
seeing this lack of interest. It's like, oh, okay. So, is there anything I can do for you? Is there anything I can support you? You start seeing all of these behaviors and all of these words, and kind of a general demeanor. It's like there's a social level of panic attacks or even anxiety attacks. You start seeing
mm,
them more often. And it's like, oh, what's happening here? Why
yeah.
are people going through all of these levels of stress? Besides the job itself, is there something that we can start doing?
Yeah.
So if you're a team leader or a supervisor, just be aware of the emotional state of your team itself. This way you
Yeah.
can check on them, see what they're doing, how they're doing, like the words they say is like, oh, I don't care, I don't mind. Or you see these behaviors like they don't come in time, they leave early, stuff like that. It's like, maybe
Yeah.
lack of motivation. Who knows? But if we see these patterns, okay, then we can do something about it. And if we
Mm,
do something about it, we avoid getting to that point of burnout where it's totally out the person. It's like, oh, I don't want to do anything. I don't mind the consequence. While there's still some levels of stress and we can cool them down, there's a
yeah.
higher level the person can still be in the company, can be useful, and the person itself, that I think it's the most important, will feel better.
Yeah, and I think that's like what's really important about like team leads and supervisors in these organizations working with content moderators is that you're sort of that first line of defense. You're going to be
Mm,
the first one to notice if someone's behavior has changed, if like they're starting to say things that they wouldn't normally say, or if they're acting in ways that seem like a little bit different to how they usually are. And that's that sort of indicator just to check in and say like, how's everything going? Is there any additional support that you need? And like there's always going to be people, I think, who don't really want to talk about the difficulties that they're having or they're worried about talking about their difficulties. But I think fostering that really like open communication between a team lead and a content moderator, where it's just like consistently checking in and saying, hope everything is going okay. If it's not, I'm here to kind of lend you support and try and offer you the best supports that I can. It's building that relationship, and that's I think
yeah,
really key when it comes to burnout is making sure that you have that really strong relationship with your team so that when they are experiencing difficulties, they're open to kind of sharing that with you.
yeah, definitely, because it's having a support network
Yeah.
of people being there. It's like, or even the content moderators who are more senior in their roles. It's like, hey, how you doing? I'm just checking on you. Like,
Mm,
and not necessarily the seniors as well as team leads. It's like, just as you're stating, just having this checkup. It's like, hey, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it, but just letting you know I'm here for you.
yeah.
So, and I've gone through all of this before. So, if you need any support or anything like it, or you don't feel really comfortable with the job, or you're seeing too much of this kind of content, let me know so we can see what I can do to fix it.
Yeah.
In a kind of way, people feel more comfortable to expose themselves or like talk about what they're going through. It's
Yeah.
way more better this way. It's more healthier this way
Yeah.
to people to express.
Yeah, and I think like we've had multiple experiences before, where team leads have also struggled. And
Mm,
they've gotten support from like our services, or maybe they've phoned like an EAP line that they have access to. So I think like a team leader like kind of role modeling and saying like, oh yeah, I've also been through like challenges like this before. Offering that little bit of like vulnerability kind of helps develop that relationship and also makes it seem like they're open to kind of having people discuss the challenges that they are having without being judged, or without kind of like fears of losing their jobs or like having some sort of like negative consequence or impact.
definitely, because it's like you're treating with a person. You're not treating with a robot.
Yeah.
Sometimes people see team leads, oh, they got to respond to the company, they got to respond to the client, we got to hit these markers and stuff like that. But when your team lead shows this kind of level of vulnerable, like as you stated, of emotionalness or being emotional, sorry, people can approach you. It's like, oh, I'm going through
Mm.
this tough time. I also experienced burnout before. I don't want anyone to experience this. It's horrible. It's awful. So if I can do something about it, let me know. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of companies that usually provide all of these support systems. It's like you
Mm.
just raise your hand, let us know, and we're gonna give you all of the support.
Yeah.
Because people know the nature of content moderator, of being a content moderator. So let us add extra layers of support. As we go
Yeah.
through extra layers of stress, let's add extra layers of support so we can cope with
Absolutely.
it better.
So it leads into like the next question really well, I think.
Mhm.
So in your experience, what have leadership or even companies as a whole done that has helped sort of decrease the potential for moderators to experience burnout?
Well, as we were saying, empathic team lead is going to help a lot. Because
Mm,
a team lead really empathic can understand the needs of their team. It's like, well, let me know if you need anything. Because if
yeah.
you're going through a tough time, let me know. So maybe we can add some extra breaks. That's super useful. Sometimes, and you don't have to have like these enormous break of 1, 2 hours off. Sometimes it's like 15, 10, maybe 20 minutes. It's like,
Mm,
cool down, go grab a cup of coffee, walk around the building, have some sunlight, you know, go up and down the stairs, just move a little
yeah.
bit. If you're going through a lot of things, just move a little bit. It's going to help you cope with it. So extra breaks, having an empathic team lead, sometimes understanding the performance targets, like we can be flexible about that because if you're going through high levels of stress and sometimes
Mm,
the content during weeks, regarding what's happening to the world is going to become more difficult to
yeah.
moderate. It's going to become more stressful, if there's wars around the place, if there's some weird stuff going in some places of the countries, people are going to start seeing more of these videos. So it's
Mm,
like, okay, so we're going through a tough wave. So maybe let's be more flexible regarding the
yeah.
goals, the targets. And having a support system itself with senior content moderators, so being more aware of the new ones. It's like, hey, do you need extra advice? Do you need extra support? Do you need something that I can help you with? So
Mm,
this way, people all as a team can help manage this burden.
yeah.
So it's not all relying on one person. It's like, oh, all as a team. So this
Yeah.
can work out a lot to people to moderate even better and can help companies to avoid the high levels of resignation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like, some of the key things that you mentioned there, like even things like performance targets, we know they're in place for a reason. We absolutely don't want to be going down like any of our social media feeds and seeing really horrible content as
Hmm.
users, right? So, content moderation teams are really working hard to kind of make sure that users don't see that stuff, which is why they have the performance targets in place. But if we can offer even the tiniest bit of flexibility, that might be beneficial to the teams. And it could be, like you're saying, like there's a period of time where things have gotten really, really hectic. The volume of content has increased because there was some sort of global event. And, for like 3 weeks, it's just been very intense. But then if
Yeah,
there's a sort of come down period, okay, what can we do during that come down period when volumes of content aren't as high, when people are feeling a little bit more like less kind of like intensely pressurized to work to themselves to the bone at those kind of stages can we like implement some additional supports or like minimize some of those performance targets or even just offer additional breaks and stuff like that so that they have a chance to kind of cool down and that they're not just sitting in the like high stress area for the next like 12-18 weeks.
yeah, definitely. That's why we gotta add these cool down periods.
Yeah,
And it's sometimes it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm gonna give you a week off so you can cool down and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the small breaks and it's the small moments in your day that is gonna
yeah,
help you like high levels of stress, cool down for a little bit, and then we can go like this. This is more manageable
yeah,
than just staying up here and then
yeah.
hitting yourself rock bottom.
Absolutely. And like there's loads of great like, mindfulness techniques and stuff that people can do within like 2 minutes or even 5 minutes to get that kind of down regulation and that cool down, right? Like a 2 minute breathing exercise does so much for someone who's just viewed something really, really egregious. And they
Yeah.
can just sit there for 2 minutes, breathe, and then that helps regulate their entire system. And then they can go back to work feeling a little bit better.
Yeah, it's super easy, and and as you're saying, there's a lot of techniques. Like there's a lot of grounding techniques, mindfulness techniques. There's like just sometimes I work with people, and I always say to them, if you feel really stressed, go talk to your TL for a second and just go walk around the building, cool down, have some physical activity, go up and down the stairs. We are like
Yeah.
if you're in the fifth level, awesome. If you have no knee problems, go up and down. It's gonna help you cool down a little bit, so you can liberate all of this stress, and then you can
Yeah.
come back. And it's gonna take you, as you say, 2, 5, the most 10 minutes, and then
Yeah.
you're gonna feel way better, and you can continue moderating.
Absolutely. So, I guess my next question is, as much as burnout is a sort of organizational issue that can impact things like productivity and like ticket handling times and accuracy, it's also very much a kind of individual experience that needs to be appropriately managed. So, what kind of strategies have you seen work best when moderators are experiencing burnout at that sort of individual level?
All right, awesome. That's a great question. So, as an individual level, well, we can start. First of all, physical activity is going to help you a lot. Physical
Mm,
activity, not only for your levels of stress, but your for your day to day. Like we should move a little bit. And I'm not saying that you gotta hit the gym 6 times a week and
yep.
like lift the heavier weights. Just do any kind of physical activity. Like you can go to the park, you can walk, you can swim, you can whatever you want to do. Just move your
Mm,
body a little bit. That's gonna help you a lot coping with all of these levels of stress because it's a healthy way we can manage stress and some kind of way alleviate itself. Another resource is mindfulness, as we were stating before, like having your daily mindfulness sessions. If you can
mm,
find a recording, you can find a podcast, you can talk. If you have a counselor in your building, you can talk to your counselor as well. Sometimes there are mindfulness sessions in the week, so you can ask for those extra support and it can help you cool down for a little bit on
yeah.
that as well. Journaling is going to be another great tool where you can have
Mm,
a safe space where you can write everything that you're going through, your emotions, your thoughts, whatever. And the great thing is paper doesn't judge you, paper won't criticize you. It'll
yeah.
receive everything you want to put in, so do it freely. So those three things are going to help a lot, as well as seek social support. You can talk
Mm,
to another team, another members of your team. It's like, hey, I'm feeling kind of stressed. Have you ever experienced this before? Looking for social support, or even after work, looking for some support groups, talking to
yeah.
your friends, to your families, like, oh, I'm going through all of this tough time. Have somebody gone through this before, or can you just listen to me and validate my emotions and through my thoughts? That can help a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes verbalizing what we're going through can help us cool down instead of just carrying everything inside of us. Like, and I use like this
Yeah.
movement because people feel it on their shoulders. People like feel like they're carrying the whole world in their backs. And it's like, talk a little bit. That can
Yeah.
help you a lot.
Yeah.
So these
Absolutely.
things can help you a lot. And the other one that I like to practice, it's like unplug yourself
Mm,
digitally and physically. It's like, go to a park. If you have the moment, just go to stay in touch with nature or unplug your phone, just chill at your own house. No need to be so connected because sometimes we're so connected to everywhere. Like you
yeah.
stop moderating, you're sitting down in front of your computer, and once you finish, you go to your phone and you start seeing social media. And it's
Yeah.
like you're being exposed to much time. So disconnect. It doesn't have to be like for a whole month and you gotta isolate yourself in a cabin in the woods and nothing like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just, for a couple of hours, maybe even for 15, 20 minutes. Just unplug yourself. Just sit there with your emotions, with your thoughts, have a cup of coffee, have a cup of tea. Just enjoy the moment with yourself. Just be with
Mm,
yourself. And that can help you a lot to cool down.
yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not being so much stimulated by all of these devices, all of this social media, all of everything. Because it's like,
Mm,
we finish moderating or we use our phones, we use our tablets, we go watch TV,
yeah.
everything everywhere.
And I think
So
that's like really sort of important is that the job is very stimulating, right? Like
yeah,
exactly like you're saying, like you're sitting in front of the desk and you're like having to watch videos or review text or like switch between like looking at your content that's in front of you and reviewing a policy to make sure that you're taking the right action. So it is a very stimulating job. And so having that time to just slow down in whatever way works best for you, whether that's the journaling or doing a mindfulness practice, or some sort of like grounding technique or just getting out in nature. Like that's, I think, what's really key is that we just need to kind of slow everything down when we're starting to feel really, really heightened and really stressed.
yeah, definitely.
So when we discuss burnout, we often focus on symptoms that are obvious, like that
Hmm.
kind of job dissatisfaction or like absenteeism. But
Hmm.
one of the key indicators is that feeling of sort of like negativity or like cynicism towards your job, right? So what could be done to address this particular kind of symptom?
Awesome. So one of the key things that we can start doing is acknowledging the hard work that they're doing. Like recognizing that or the impact as well they're doing to
Hmm.
the world. So there's two things. So recognizing their hard work, because it's a hard work, it's a hard job. Like
Yeah.
watching videos every single day, pictures, comments, everything that they're going through the internet, it's exhausting. It's a hard
Hmm.
work to do. So if you have this small motivation regularly, it's like, hey, you're doing a good job. Thank you so much. We are really thankful for about this. It's like
Mm,
it makes you feel in some kind of way fulfilled. It's like, oh, I'm impacting in a good way. And this is
yeah.
the other part of it. It's like the whole idea is keeping the internet safe. So sometimes we gotta expose ourselves so we know that maybe our friends, maybe our family, or other people around the world are not seeing all of this
Mm,
horrible, nasty stuff that we're watching in our day to day. So in some kind of way, it's like, oh, I'm doing my part in this.
yeah.
So this can help you a lot fighting all of this negativism or cynicism. It's like, I don't care, I don't mind. No, I do care. Yeah, I do mind. Like I'm putting my small grain of salt in this, and it's like, oh, putting my effort here.
Yeah.
So that can really help a lot. So if companies, TLs, or other peers in your day to day can help you be mindful of this, it's like, oh, remember that we're doing good at the world. We're keeping the internet safe.
Yeah.
So that can help you a lot.
Yeah, and I think it's really about driving that sense of kind of like meaning and purpose behind what it is that they're doing. Like they're not just sitting behind a computer screen for fun looking at this
Yeah.
content. It's very much to protect users and to keep kids online safe and to keep like elderly people who are like subjected to fraud safe from scams, like
Yeah.
there's so much real world impact that I think like content moderators might not really realize when they've been doing the job for so long, it can feel very routine and just kind of
Mm.
rote and monotonous, like you were saying before. But like they need that kind of reassurance and that recognition regularly to say you are having a real world impact. What you're doing is making a difference. There's meaning and purpose behind what it is that you're doing, and that can really help mitigate that feeling of like this job doesn't really mean anything to me.
Yeah, definitely. It can
Yeah.
help a lot. Like you have an impact and this job is important for me. Either whatever the reasons you are in content moderator, but you gotta be mindful of your reasons. Not just saying, oh, it's another job, it's another day. It's like, no, I
Mm,
do have an impact on this. I'm in some kind of way thinking about myself, but thinking about others as well. And that can
yeah.
motivate people to continue moderating better and to avoid these levels of burnout or these levels or high levels of stress that's gonna take you to burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered a lot over
Yeah.
the last sort of like 20 minutes. Are there any kind of last thoughts you want to leave with our audience on preventing and managing burnout amongst content moderation teams?
Yes, let's be mindful of how we're feeling. Sometimes we
Mm,
normalize all of this. We think, oh, this is supernatural. This is going to happen. This is. No, be mindful of how you're feeling. If you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling even burnout, you're starting to feel all of the symptoms that we talked about. It's like, reach out. You don't have to go through this all by yourself. You can
mm,
raise your hand, and a lot of companies gonna have a really good support system, or look for
yeah,
your support yourself. Do something about it. Don't carry it all by yourself and it's like, oh, well, this is what it is. It's not. We can do something about it. We
yeah,
can cope with it a way better ways. We can feel much better if we just talk about it.
yeah,
So if you're a content moderator going through high levels of stress, just raise your hand, say you need help. There's nothing wrong with it. And you're gonna feel much better way sooner than you expect.
amazing. Well, listen, it has been fantastic chatting to you, Ryan. I'm sure that our audience has learned a lot through this webinar. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you as we have been. And thank you very much.
No, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to talk about new topics in the future. So we're happy to be here. Yeah. Let's hope
Great.
we can see each other again in the future.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
everybody, for listening in.